Okay, just as I think Ohio is a two-party consent state, so we're recording this live internationally. Our cousins from Germany are on the line right now beaming in, and we're going to be fortunate enough to, if I can make the connection work, have Julian Dobler, who is the owner of Dobler Wines. In the old country, tablers were Doblers and Tobelers, and they make a very nice white wine, which I've unofficially smuggled through my bags over the last few months into the United States. I'm sure within the limit, don't worry. And it's going to allow us to have a toast a little bit later for our cousin, late cousin, Hans-Peter Rosenberger. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Some of you were with us earlier today in the Tablertown Church. Some of you have saw Hans-Peter speak here at the in the Kirchheim, in the Tablertown Church a couple of years ago on his visit, and we were so sorry that he passed on July 1st of this year. He was a truly unique and kind individual without whom we would not be here today in terms of as a group. But I'll let the story kind of tell itself. Let me just make sure I can make the PowerPoint work properly. That can hopefully, okay. All right, so the title of this presentation is Rekindling Kinship, Finding Your Roots, Uncovering Truths, and a Tabler Family Way of Reuniting a Not-So-Divided World. Now, in case you're wondering where this title came from, I just made it up about 3 weeks ago. And it was late at night. Actually, it was about 3 a.m. I'm sure all of you sleep through the night, but I don't. And so I got up and I thought this would be kind of a good way to frame things generally for today. I'm going to see if I can advance this through the slides and tell a little bit of the story about how this all began. I just want to make sure, Rolf and Renata, can you hear us and see the presentation online? Okay, great. All right. Okay, so the document, so first of all, it's so nice to be here with you today. I'm Andrew Tabler. I'm here with my father, Clarence, his brother, Leroy, my aunt, Judy, my cousin, Roger, and my cousin, Cass. We are from the Johann Adam branch of the Tabler family. And by my estimations, and I'll get to this a little bit later, we all haven't been united for 197 years until today. To put that in perspective, okay? Most of you that are from Tablertown, you're from the Johann George branch of the family. And so I found David a couple of years ago, and I'll tell that story. I'm going to tell this chronologically so you all understand it as I lived it. I'm not going to do it thematically. I'm not going to shove ideas down your throats. The idea of the kind of interaction we've had over the last couple of years is that we live this and we just kind of see, I don't want to mix metaphors here, but we just see how things go, and we're reuniting family and getting them back together. In Washington, we call it throwing spaghetti against the wall, and you see what sticks and what doesn't. But obviously a lot's stuck, because look before us right now, and we have very similar kinds of gatherings in Germany as well. So how did this all start? In 2017, I was preparing to go to work in the federal government. And when you prepare to go to work in the federal government, you really can't do much of anything, because you might make whoever's bringing you into the government angry, or you might make some senator or congressman angry who's going to then drag you out before a hearing and decide to hang your life out like dirty laundry, right? So I was kind of just basically doing research, and I had a conference that was in Prague in the Czech Republic, and I had a conference that was in Geneva, and I had a week in between. And I said to my dad, Dad, would you like to come to Europe and come over with me? I can take you to these conferences, and we'll travel in between that week, and we'll go to Germany. And he said yes. In those days, we were coming out of the pandemic, and there were all sorts of excuses why passports weren't coming out at the right time and so on. But we managed to, it just kind of, it was like leading up to it and so on. So we managed to pop that out. In the summer of 2017, we started out from Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic, and we drove in a rental car across southern Germany, and the question was where to start. Like all of you that are tablers here, or descendants of tablers, you all know that you're originally from, at least part of your family is from where? Germany. But do you know where in Germany you're from? In our branch of the family, we didn't know. I guess you probably didn't know either. You knew we were from Germany, but Germany's a big country. Where actually in Germany were we from? And we never really knew that. We only found out a couple of years ago some important facts, and that included the ship that our family came over on. So I started researching on Ancestry.com about the Tabler family history, and I went through 15 different places where our family was supposedly from. And talk about fake news. Wow. I mean, also there's just people out there who are really trying to do good things in archival research, but it's an art, not a science, and people make mistakes. And so finally one day, I'm really tired, it's the afternoon, and I pull up this document. And this, did I lose power here? Okay, sorry. I pull up this document. And this document here on screen, this is a TAUF registration. And this is essentially a family book registration of different baptismals that are from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kirchheim, what is today Baden-Württemberg, which was then part of the Holy Roman Empire. And I knew we were in business because here you can see Dobler and Stuber up here, and here it talks a little bit about their background, and it says here in the year 1732 that the family, or part of the family, went off to Pennsylvania. Now this is the part of the record that I could read. I studied German in school, like some of you probably, but my German is very poor. I studied Arabic later on, and it further made it even worse, but I could read that. But my boss in the U.S. government at the time, Ambassador James Jeffrey, his wife, Gudrun, is of German origin, and her late father, and then was alive, he could read what's called Altdeutsch, or Old German, and so we were able to translate other parts of not just this record, but other records, and we were able to see very clearly where we were from. And in this record, it says very clearly that we came from Kirchheim am Neckar, and that there were the two brothers, Matthias and Jörg, who came over. And at the bottom of here is Melchior Dobler, or Melchior Tabler, born in 1725. And that is the patriarch of all of us who are in the United States now. Okay, so I knew that was the right place. So, you know, at that time, that was 285 years after we left Germany. So the question is, so even if you have the record, who do you go and talk to find out, right? I mean, what do you do? And I thought about this for a long time, and I thought, well, the best thing to do is just go to the town hall and try and expose my really poor German, and through that, limited use, I translated something in advance, very nervously, to say to the town manager, and she was very helpful. I just asked her very simply, we are from this town, our name is Dobler, is anybody still alive? And she went to the vault, she came back, and she said, well, you're definitely from here, but there are no Doblers living here right now, and we don't have any state records that go back to 1732 because Germany didn't exist. It was the Holy Roman Empire. So you need to go to the church. And she gestured with her hand over to the church, which was the medieval church next door. So my dad and I, kowtowed. We said, fine, okay. We walked out, and we, like good Pennsylvanians, straightforward people, walked over to the church, right? Now, what's the big difference, even in this country, between Protestant churches and Catholic churches in terms of openings? Protestant churches are usually closed during the day, oftentimes, or can be locked. Not always, but can be. Catholic churches are open because there are more rituals that go along with that. Anyways, the German church was locked. So we went over, we took lots of photos of the outside. We thought we were defeated. Oh dear, that's not a good sign. And yeah, thank you, David. And so we sat down at a local outdoor cafe, and it was right afternoon, so we ordered a beer. And it was Germany in the summertime, and it seemed like the right thing to do. And this beautiful German barmaid came over, and I started speaking to her in broken German, and she said, "Don't worry, I speak English." And I'm like, "Great." And I handed her this document, and I said, "Can you help us?" And she said, "Just give me a moment." This is the town hall that we walked into, okay? As we walked up to it, this is that moment. This is my father, Clarence Tabler, here. He actually was drinking a water. I was drinking the beer. Just please put it down. There we go. Thank you. And this is the young barmaid looking at the announcement on the church bulletin board for the number of the church administration. So that's from that actual moment. I didn't know it was that moment, but it was. And this is the church here in the background. And so she came over after a few minutes, and she said, "The town genealogist will be here in 5 minutes." And I was like, "Great." And I remember looking at my father, and we were thinking, and everybody in the bar was trying to tell us where to go and eat and so on. And in any case, in walked Hans-Peter Rosenberger, and he looked at us. This is Hans-Peter on the left. And he looked at us, and he said, looked very calmly. I started speaking to him in German. He says, "Don't bother. I was an English teacher." I'm like, "Great. Can you help us?" And he looks at the record very calmly, and he says, "Can you come to my house at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning?" And I was like, "Damn straight I can. Yeah." And he said, I think we're related. Hans-Peter Rosenberger, through our maternal line, the Stuber family, is our 8th cousin, at least to our line. I don't know what he is to you, but it's probably pretty close. So close but distant at the same time, right? And thus began, and this is in front of the church book from which that scanned record came. So that's actually the record for our family physically in the church in Kirchheim. And it was just a really magical experience. This is the inside of the church in Kirchheim, to give you a little bit of an idea of it. Medieval church, goes back to 10-something. I don't exactly know the history of it, but we can help you stitch it together somewhere else. Highly worth a visit. If you're ever interested, let me know. He was an excellent guide and historian, and a true, we couldn't have met anybody better. You would have loved him. And those of you that were in the Taylortown Church and heard his speech had a chance to meet up with him. Here he is showing us from the church tower above and overlooking Kirchheim, a village that he really loved and appreciated. Hans-Peter also, like all Tablers and all descendants of Tablers, loved food. A lot of it, very heavy food. Swabian food is very heavy. It has like a lot of kind of raviolis filled with meats and other kinds of things. Yeah, exactly. And it's very savory, and it's unbelievably good. Also, the area of Germany we come from is wine-producing area of Germany. So Germany is famous for beer, but actually Germany produces fantastic wines. And our family, different parts of it, have been producing wines for now close to 300 years. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to have some of that. We're going to have some of that wine a little bit later today in Toast to Hans-Peter. But Hans-Peter's greatest asset was his mind. Here he is with me going over the family book. I had a chance after that visit to visit with him one more time before I went to the administration. And this is in his kitchen. And he had already typed out our family lineage from Germany back to the United States. And you couldn't have had a better friend. The area of Germany we're from, which is now Baden-Württemberg, which is generally known as Württemberg or Swabia, is a beautiful area. This is of Kirchheim itself, and the bend in the Neckar River. The Neckar River flows into the Rhine at Mannheim, north of the city. And this is Hans Peter walking through the vineyards. It's, for those of you that have been to Germany, or sorry, have been to Europe, it's very much like France, the wine producing areas of France. Not a heavy beer drinking area. And the family has been involved and still is involved in winemaking there. We had a chance to meet. This is a meeting with the town pastor, Pastor Kubicek, and Hans Peter. This was on my last trip before I went into the administration, and that introduced us physically to the church, and we had a chance to meet with Pastor Kubicek a number of times over the years, who helped us do our research. And of course, this is what the sort of stone terraces look like. They're very steep, and all of the vines are assembled along these terraces, and all the grapes are picked by hand. The best thing about going to Hans Peter's house was eating and drinking. He loved Swabian wine, really he did, and it was really good. And you didn't even have to drink a whole lot of it if you mashed it with the food. It was really a magical experience, and we spent a lot of time doing that. But before I get ahead of myself, I went then into the administration, and I couldn't really talk with Hans Peter very often. When you're in a government position, you can't deal with non-nationals of the United States, especially if you're in an official position. It's very difficult, and it was getting more difficult. But he seemed to understand that. But on the day that I went to work in the White House, I was able to, if you can see, I don't think you can see. So these cufflinks that I have on are of the church in Kirchheim. It's the symbol of the village. It's a long story, but I go a lot to the Middle East, so I had a jeweler there make them. And as I walked to work in the White House the first day, I sent him one photo, and only one photo, and I said, "Kirchheim enters the White House." And he simply wrote back, "Thank you," and didn't speak to me for the next 6 months, which I really appreciated. It made my life easier. It made his life easier. Administration ends. I'm really eager to restart everything. So what we do is we start looking. I go back to Germany, and we start looking. He was from the maternal side of the family. We start looking for Doblers, Toblers, and Tablers, actual Tablers. And so one day, coming back from the southern part of Germany, he said, "We have to go. Your relatives are living next door in Brackenheim. It's a neighboring village." Okay. And I said, "Are you sure?" It was about 8 o'clock at night. And he said, "Yes, we have to go now." So we combined that notion with Google Maps. I Googled Dobler, Brackenheim, and up came the family Dobler Weinbau and Ostbau fruit and grape producing family. And we stopped here first. And the owner of that shop, we asked him very simply, "Do you know anything about genealogy of the Dobler family?" He said no, but Walter Dobler, the patriarch of the Dobler family in the village, does know about it. We said, "Great, what's his address?" And he said, "I don't know, but he lives somewhere up on Breslauer Strasse." And we're like, okay, a little bit more information, right? So we go driving up on Breslauer Strasse. We're driving along, and Hans Peter suddenly screams, "Stop!" Literally like that. So I stop. And he jumps out of the car, and he runs up to this house. I kid you not. And that was the right house. I asked him why later. He said, "That is the house of a farmer." And the Doblers are wine farmers, vine gardeners as it's known, or viticulturalists. And inside we walked up to Walter Dobler. He is now almost 90, I believe. And we walked up to him and said, and Hans Peter said, "This man is from America, and he is your relative." And Walter said, "Well, I'm watering my flowers right now, but come on in." So all of a sudden, we were in his dining room. And this is Walter and his lovely wife, Laura. This is Hans Peter in the center, and myself taking a selfie. And very quickly, they pulled out their family books, and lo and behold, the patriarch of their family, which is here on the top, Jörg Dobler, or George, so same name as your branch of the family. And down here is Hans Leonard, who is Melchior's father. And at that point, 5 minutes into the conversation, we knew we were family, just like that. And if it wouldn't have been for Hans Peter and his pluck, as we say, none of this would have happened. I brought this photo because I took it by accident, but after I came out of this meeting of crackers, wine, and some cheese, my head was spinning, not from the alcohol, but just like, where am I? I can't believe this is happening, right? It was really amazing. Anyways, I went back to America and started thinking about, I left information with Walter and Laura about, gave them my card. I also sent them a Christmas card. That then subsequently led us to, for Albrecht and Rolf Dobler, Rolf is on the line right now at least, to contact us a little bit later. I think I'm getting some feedback from this, right? Is it buzzing? Good, okay. So anyways, at that point, I decided to turn to the domestic side of the family. And so my father in 1970, when the family estate, the plantation, so to speak, was being sold off, Uncle Clyde's farm. Uncle Clyde lived where the Tablers had lived for hundreds of years. There are 3 groupings of Tablers in Berkeley County, which is now West Virginia, was then Virginia. There's Tabler's Mill, that's where you all come from, descendants of George. There's the descendants of Adam. They come from an area called Cumbo, or the Hedgesville Road. And then there's another area called Tabler Station, which still exists to this day. And so in 1970, that began, they were selling off the family farm, and included in that was this rifle, which doesn't fire for just disclosure purposes, okay? So this is a Pattern 1 Enfield rifle that has been in our family for, here you go, David, has been in our family since around the Civil War. And it was known as Grandpa OC's rifle or shotgun. And we haven't really touched it. It's been sitting in a closet since 1970. And one day I just decided to pull it out and to take a look at it. And I was looking at the markings and I was verifying when it was from. We always knew that it was an antique rifle, but we didn't know, we thought it was just a shotgun. Well, in the process of doing this, I just started thinking about it. You can put that down if you want, Dave, or you can keep on holding it as you like.
The bidding starts at $1 million. It's all for the museum.
Unfortunately,
There's
it's not.
The bidder right there.
Unfortunately, my dad would shoot me if I sold that. Yeah, and not with that rifle. Yeah. Okay. But who knows what happens in the future? So, OC's rifle. We pull it out. I just decide to Google. Just want to check my time here. I decide to Google Tabler Civil War. In our family, we never knew about any Tablers serving in the Civil War at all. Before a couple of years ago, we didn't even know that Tablers were slaveholders at all. It was all buried in the sea of time. And it was all just kind of out, sort of going around out there. And up comes David Butcher's face on a YouTube video about Tablertown. You're all laughing because you watch the same video as I do, right? And lo and behold, I start watching this. I had my earbuds in. My dad was watching the news. And I'm watching this for 15 minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, what is this? I can't believe this story. It's unbelievable. So I stop it, and I run over with my laptop, and I throw it in front of my dad, and I say, watch this. And we start watching it, and he watched it for 15 minutes. I stop it. I said, have you ever heard anything about this in your entire life? He said, no, never. I could tell by the look on his face he hadn't. He wasn't lying, right? And so suddenly, I had this discovery in front of me. Look, I think you can probably understand this. If you never knew your family was slaveholding, and then suddenly you find out, there's this place called Tablertown with this amazing story, And David put at the end of his video a picture of his business card. I don't have it up here today, unfortunately. I didn't think that far ahead. But on his business card, he has that sketch of Michael Tabler, right? You probably have all seen it with the nicely cropped beard and the full head of hair and looking really handsome. He looks exactly like my dad back there, right? So there's David Butcher from Tabletown with my dad's sketch on his business card. It's like God was saying to me, go ahead and call him. See what happens. Well, I waited a couple of days because it's like a Pandora's box. You don't know what's going to happen. Also, we had no idea, we have not been in association with us, by my recollection, for 197 years. But one day I was walking to work, and I just decided, oh, what the hell. So I called David on the phone, and instantly he started calling me Cousin Andrew. And the next thing I know, on the shortest day of the year in 2021, I drove straight into the setting sun and came out here to Tabletown. Yes. And I got a chance to know you all. And so the rifle led to that. Here's the map of Berkeley County. You all are from here, right? This is Opequon Creek. We're from up here along the B&O Railroad. That's important. And then Tabler Station's down here. So during the Civil War, we found out that the Tabler family was quite divided. 54 Tablers fought for the North, 38 fought for the South. What we didn't know at the time was that you've heard stories about brothers fighting brothers during the Civil War. Well, that really happened in the Tabler family. It happened in our family. Now, the descendants of our family, John Alexander, which would have been Adam's grandson, he joined a northern unit and fought for the 2nd Regiment of the Potomac Home Brigades. But his brother, John Ashbury Tabler, fought for the South. This rifle is a Enfield 1853 rifle. We don't know whether it was for the South or for the North. We don't exactly know how it came into the family. We do know that there was this auction, which was on this placard here, and it says that this is from 1892 from our family, and it says at the bottom there is a rifle for sale. This is our my great-grandfather, O.C. Tabler, at the bottom, and it says there, one rifle. We don't know if that's how it came into the family. We just don't really know. But it's a good guess. And a lot of times, thank you, David, when you're doing genealogy, it's just a guess. But Berkeley County, it's natural that Tablers fought on both sides. Why? Berkeley County changed hands 37 times during the war. You can imagine the political upheaval during that time. And our family, as I noted in the previous slide, we had one attribute that probably influenced this, and that is the Union controlled the B&O Railroad that went up the northern part of the Shenandoah. Our family was right in here, okay? So most likely, and we know from the history of Berkeley County, that affected things. Over here at Opequon Creek, it was a much different, more agricultural, less industrialized part of Berkeley County. But to be honest with you, I don't know for sure. I'm just guessing. I only know that from other accounts. And they're out there, and I encourage you to look at them if you're interested. So, I show up in Tabletown. I think I'm just going to meet David and his lovely wife, Rose. I open the door, and there's 15 Tablers in his log cabin. And I'm like, wow. I brought you all I don't know if it is an insight or a theory, but as I was watching David's video, I'm looking at it, and he starts talking in there about Hannah. And Hannah, and how we didn't know where Hannah was from, or when she arrived, or where she was, and so on. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, Hannah. So walked away, came back, thought, wait a minute. Off of Ancestry.com, I had pulled records from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Frederick, Maryland. And in that record, which had been translated from Old German, this is actually partially written in Latin, there was a notice for a baptism. And it says, Hannah Negro woman of Melchior Debler. Deblers are tablers. And the birth date. And then who Katharina and Melchior Debler were the witnesses at that time. And so she was born in 1787. And the Evangelical Lutheran Church had made a notation in the English translation that said, this record is extraordinary. So I had read it, but I didn't remember it, so I instantly called Marcia Hahn, the archivist in Frederick, Maryland, and I said, Marcia, you wrote here this is extraordinary, why? She said, well, there are a lot of reasons. I said, okay, lay it on me. She said, first of all, most people didn't baptize their slaves. They just didn't. Second, when they did baptize their slaves, oftentimes they were what's considered illegitimate because they were not a product of a formal marriage. And as we can see here, it's Hannah, who is the daughter of Hannah, so there's no father, right? So it's not a standard entry. So like in medieval Europe, when a birth is illegitimate, they used to turn the books around and write it upside down. But she said this one is different because, as you can see, it's written right side up just like everybody else. And I said, wow, that's really cool. And so I came out to David's house with I met all these tablers. All of a sudden there were 15 tablers in front of me, and we're all eating ham and peas and potatoes and everything. And all of a sudden I take out this record and I start talking about it, and you could hear a pin drop. And I realized how much you really love Hannah and want to try and find out where she's from. This is our best theory that we have from our branch of the family, and it's just a theory because ultimately it's up to you all to figure it out, of where Hannah came from. Where Hannah was, or ended up, is an interesting story. This is the genealogical record of our family. This is your family. This is George and Katerina Easterday. The Easterday family and the Tabler family were closely related. They intermarried 4 or 5 different times. As you can see here, the children of George and Catherine, according to this, Michael has no record, but he is deeded 1,025 acres in Ohio County, Virginia, which he received in 1835 and was reconveyed. And another similar entry is Polly Tabler. No other information known. Was willed 600 acres also in Ohio County, and transactions in Wheeling Courthouse. So you can already see from this, Christian ended up inheriting Tabler's Mill, that something major was going on, not just in terms of opinion, but maybe in moral considerations. There was obviously a disagreement in the family about how to handle something, but you can't tell it really from this record. As we went along, we found that actually Hannah, the Hannah in this record that I just pulled up 2 slides ago, she was living with Melchior Tobler, the patriarch of the family. Suddenly, he died in 1804, either unfortunately for Hannah or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, because it was, the early 1800s in Virginia. It wasn't like this was easy. His widow, Philippina, lived for another 23 years. And it appears during that time that she had a relationship with Michael Tabler that gave birth to at least the 6 children that are your descendants. So she was living, it appears, in Maryland, in Frederick, Maryland, and he was living in along Opequon Creek in what was then Virginia. But it was very clear that they had a relationship. Well, in 1827, we have major events happening. The widow Philippina finally dies at the age of 107 years old. Must have been a strong lady, right? And on her deathbed, she writes a will in which she sets free, or orders her nephew, Louis Tabler, to set free Hannah and her daughter, Mary. And her daughter, Mary, is probably the youngest member of the Tabler descendants you find in your church. The years don't exactly line up, but it's my best theory about that. And so This is very clearly spelled out. This is all on her deathbed. It's all very legal. And she is liberated. This is her manumission document. It gives her complete description. But this happens in January of 1827. Michael's father, George, is still alive until October. George was known to be a pretty brutal guy, and I think seriously disagreed with his son Michael about slavery and probably a whole hell of a lot of other things, because he had already conveyed to him his inheritance. There was something really weird going on. They were trying to handle something that was pretty substantial. Well, my theory is the things that they were trying to handle were the 6 children that Michael had with Hannah, at least. Right? And what to do about that. Because in that period of time in Virginia, if you were the product or the increase of someone who was a slave, you were a slave. And if then you were liberated, you couldn't, like Maryland, you could stay if you were liberated. In Virginia, you had to get out of the state within 1 year. And your, quote, former master had to pay for your travel outside of the country or outside of the state of Virginia. That all happened in 1827. When did your community approximately start? Circa 1830. The numbers line up, right? I think this is your Hannah, and I think this is evidence of their relationship, of Michael and Hannah's relationship, that was probably protected by the widow Filipina for a number of years over the course of their relationship, because of course they didn't have kids all at once, right? They had them over a number of decades. And something really major was going on. And if we could ever find out that story, that would be really amazing. But maybe that's up to children I don't have, or you all, or all of us. So anyways, I'm running overboard here, and I know that our cousin Julian is waiting. But in any case, this is a photo from Tablertown from the first meeting. I think I've showed this photo to many people, and they're all like, "You all look alike," and I'm like, "Yeah, actually, you do." If you look at Tablers, they're usually pretty good here in the eyes. You can usually see a little bit of it, and we just had a wonderful time. So I decided, I got all these folks from Tablertown, right? And I have my German relatives, and now I know my Tabler relatives. What do I have this personality. I don't like to know how things end. I like to just throw stuff up in the air and see what happens, right? It actually gets you closer to the truth. You know why? Because I don't know about you, but I am inundated with what I call crap all the time, stereotypes about what you think, about what I think, based on my race, based on my gender, based on a whole host of other things. And I actually like to deal with real human beings. I actually think it's really interesting because I find that everybody's a little different. And in our first meeting in Tablertown, I remember sitting down and having a discussion about what is a person of color. And not everybody agreed on that. Not everybody agreed that they were a person of color. Some people thought that they were white. Some people thought they were black. It was just an amazing experience. So I thought, why don't we just make this international? I have a bunch of airline miles that I saved up from my work. And so I decided, hey, David, why don't you come over to Germany, and we go over and meet up with Hans Peter, and we decide to pick some cherries and make some schnapps. We had drank a lot of schnapps, which is like a kind of liqueur or a vodka that they make out of cherries every year. I drank quite a bit of it with Hans Peter over the years, and we just decided to do it. And so David came over and started a great relationship. This is a scene on Hans Peter's John Deere tractor. So another American connection. And here we are eating lunch. And here we are this is also Pastor Philip, joined us the second year. And here we are picking cherries again, out in the fields. Here's Philip stirring the cherries. We really put Philip to work because he looks like he's got some guns on him, so he's got to work out, right? And of course, Hans Peter was a great ally of yours. You knew that from his presentation here, but he's just a fantastic guy. And here he is with a hog scraper, as David gave him, but also a cover of the Athens Messenger talking about Tablertown. And I think this was ahead of his trip here. He was just so happy about it, and we really miss him. We had a magical experience in Brackenheim, and I'll end with this. I know we've been running over, and we're going to go to Julian Dobler in Germany. So we're from Kirchheim am Neckar, our branch of the family. When Hans-Peter and I tried to find the Doblers, we simply went and used Google Maps and found the Doblers. They are in a neighboring village called Brackenheim. And so in the second trip, when Philip joined us, David and I and Hans-Peter, we went over to the Brackenheim church, and we had this informal service presentation after the main service there. And at that point, as you can see here very clearly on screen, we have Hannah and her baptism record and David speaking. Hans-Peter is translating into German David's talk about Hannah, and really all of our relatives were listening very intently, and it was a really special. I cried several times. I don't often cry, but it seemed like a good excuse to do so. It was just so beautiful, right? For so much understanding to come across so quickly, and for God's love across all of the things we have to put up with, across boundaries and the divisions and everything that's in front of us, for this all to happen. It was just amazing. But that wasn't all, because as I mentioned earlier, Tablers and Doblers, and many of them are on the line. Let's see, we've got Rolf, we have Albrecht, and we have Julian, and they're all on the line. I hope they can hear me. All Tablers and Doblers love to eat, right? We all love a lot of food, and we love also wine as well. Some of us don't drink, but some of us do. And this was a great barbecue. We've had a barbecue every year at Albrecht's farm. This is the Tabler sort of wine chateau or estate, I guess. And they still produce wine after now almost approaching 300 years. The last year that we were together as a family was 1731. And appropriately, one of the vintages that is produced in that area is called 1731, which is, I think, quite appropriate, commemorating their castle. I think that's the end. Oh, wait, no, there's Cass and her daughter, also eating, not surprisingly. And we just had the best time. And with that, I'll end this presentation, and what I'm gonna do is we're gonna very quickly turn this over to Julian Dobler, who is with us, and I'm gonna see if I can turn my computer around so he can see you. Let me just see if I can do this, just one second. Let's see. No. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the computer around and see if this does it. Okay. Julian, can you see us?
No, yeah. I see you. Okay. Hi, guys.
And we can hear you. I don't know how long you've been on the line, but we've just done
20 minutes roughly.
Oh, okay. We are going to be having a toast with your good wine of all the bottles I unofficially smuggled into the United States. Part of your distribution network, unofficial, of course. And I just wanted, and then we're going to have a toast to him. But before we did that, I wanted you to give whatever you'd like to say, and I believe we've worked it out, about concerning wine and wine production and so on. So we'll leave it to you. Take it away.
Yeah. Can you see my screen? No, you probably can't, right?
Yes.
We can see you, but we can't see the screen. I think it's probably because I'm sharing my screen. Let me see. Hold on. Just 1 second. Yeah, we'll allow that. Why not? Okay. Let me see if I can stop. Okay,
So
you
now
started sharing your screen. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There we go. Just to double check, Andrew, which wines did you prepare now? Just the one, the 23, or also the 2020 vintage?
Mostly the 2023. We have one 2020 there, but let's just speak mostly to the 2023 if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, sure. All right. A big welcome from me. My name is Julian. And first of all, thanks a lot, David and Andrew, for making it possible to speak to you I really appreciate what you guys do for our family. And I'll say, yeah, let's just get started. If you don't understand my English or if you got any further questions, feel free to ask. I'm trying to give you my very best, but I'm not a native speaker, so please excuse me. I would like to start with a family picture. This was when David and Andrew came to visit our family first in, I think, 2021 or 22. I'm not sure. Our family branch is quite big. This is only a few people. We are even more people than in the picture Andrew showed before. But I just want to quickly introduce everybody. So this is Hans Peter. God bless him. You know him already. David, of course. Andrew on the very right-hand side.
Yes.
On the bottom side, you can see my grandparents. My uncle is here. This is me. And then I got 3 cousins, Tobias, Daniel's wife, and his daughter. And then the 3rd cousin, Linda. My parents are missing, my sister is missing, and then 2 aunts and their families are missing. So it's quite big. And yeah, I'd say at least 60% of all of the family members are involved with winemaking somehow. And yeah, winemaking is very big in our family. It's very important. And I'd like to tell you something about it in the next couple of minutes. So, as Andrew already said, our family branch is from Germany. Germany is in the middle of Europe. Very important for Europe, and Europe is important for us. Brackenheim, which is the town that the main family members are from, is in the southwestern part of Germany, pretty close to the French border. So we've got a little influence from France as well. But Swabian is considered quite independent. So Swabian is the area where we live. What else to say about it? Let's just move on. Swabian is also a synonym for Württemberg. Württemberg is the state where we come from. We are a cool climate region, at least in winemaking speaking. We got a lot of rain. We got, at least during winter time and summer as well. During summertime, it's quite hard because, rain causes a lot of fungi, and fungi are making a hard time for viticulturists because, grapes get rotten if there's too much pressure. And, it's not looking like this at the time. At this time of the year, it's harvest, so all the leaves are falling off. It's quite colorful at this time of the year, but this is a picture of in summer. And summer it can get quite warm, up to 30-35 degrees. That's quite normal. Climate change is hitting us, so it's getting even warmer and warmer. And even though we got a lot of rain, rain is not sufficient sometimes during summertime, and grapes tend to get sunburned more often. So that's a problem that we also have to face. Sometimes there's too much rain in spring, and sometimes there's not enough water in summer anyway. We got a lot of calcareous soils. That's extremely good for winemaking because you get wines that are really mineral and really straightforward, really clear, but we can taste that later, I think. As I said, winemaking is quite important in our family. I'm the 9th generation that grows grapevines in our family. Traditionally, grapes get sold to big cooperatives, and the cooperatives, they make the wine out of the grapes. But I studied winemaking, and since I know how to make wine, I thought, we have to do our own wine because our grapes normally get mixed with a lot of other producers' grapes, and I wanted to know what our grapes can actually do because we put a lot of effort in our vineyards, and we somehow don't really know if the work we do is actually as good as we think. So that's why I started the wine in 2019, and ever since we produce 1,000 bottles roughly. So the production is quite low. I still study winemaking in my master's, so the time is limited. But it's a start at least. The main persons that are responsible for the wine is me for the winemaking itself, and Daniel for the viticulture part. But nearly everybody of the family has to help if they want or not. So it's a real family business. And I would suggest that we have the first wine now. Andrew, is that fine for you?
Sure, that would be fine. Just where's the microphone? There we go. Yes, Julian, that'd be fine.
Great. So maybe you can pour the wine.
Yes, just a moment. Did everybody get a glass of wine? Okay, so this is in honor of Hans Peter. This is going to be our. Would you like to say something before we drink it, Julian, or after?
Oh, you have it first, and then we can talk about it.
Okay, here's to the memory of Hans Peter Rosenberg.
Amen.
Rosenberger.
Salute. Salute.
Okay, everybody seems pretty pleased, Julian. Okay,
that's
go
good.
ahead.
That's what I hope. We got a wine that is made out of Pinot Blanc. So Pinot Blanc, that's a variety, and the synonym in German would be Weißburgunder. The year is 2023. 23 was difficult spring. We had a lot of rain, a lot of mildew pressure, but then it turned out quite good because the summer was sunny but not too hot. So the flavors in the wine turned out pretty good. If you still got a sip left in your glass, you can maybe get a hint of banana and peach.
I don't think so.
And also that freshness from citrus and green apple maybe. The wine is totally dry. It's only got 1 gram of sugar left in it, and the acidic content is quite high with 6.3. That's quite normal. We like to have it as high as here, sometimes even higher, because it supports the freshness of our wines. We try to keep the freshness in the wines. And acidity is just really good to transport that freshness. On the viticultural part, it's very important for us to do a really good job because the quality of our wines depend on the quality of our grapes. If the grapes are bad, the wine can't be or can't turn out good because the base is just missing. We put a lot of manual work in our vineyards. We need something about 800 working hours per hectare. That's high. That's way more than vineyards in Napa Valley, for example, need. We sometimes have steep slopes where we can't use the tractors often, so that's a really limiting factor. But we hope that it supports the quality if we put as much work as I said. During the ripening on the grapevine, the time shortly before harvest is really important. We try to measure the grapes weekly before harvest, just to really get the perfect time for the grape harvest, because the grape harvest really affects the flavor in the wine, and we try to make it really good and hit the perfect timing. During harvest, it's also all handpicked for the corporation we sell to. It's normally all machine picking, but for our wines we make ourselves. We want to really select everything. We don't want any rotten grapes in our wines, so we really select everything. Again, it's all family business and friends that help. It's always great fun, but it's also really exhausting because it's a lot of work. And then on the enological part, maybe I just summarize quickly what we do, and it's not a lot. We harvest the grapes, and then we put the whole clusters in the press, it, no destemming, no crushing, because if you crush it, if you destem it, it's not as precise anymore. If you just leave the grape as it is and just press it really gently, you don't lose a lot of acidity and keep the wine in a fresh style. We put the juice in a tank, and there's normally still a lot of skin fragments, and sometimes a little kind of dirt or something that was on the grapes. We let it sediment for like 24 hours, and then we only take the clear juice. We rack it, that's what we call it. We rack it, only take the clear juice, and then add yeast to ferment the wine. And once the fermentation is done, the yeast, so the elements go down. Then we rack it again to have the clear wine, filter it, add a little sulfur, and then we bottle it. So that's not a lot of steps we use, but it doesn't sound too complicated, I think. But anyway, you need to really have a good timing you have to hit the right tones, otherwise your wines is not as good as it could be. So Andrew, do you have the 2020 vintage as well?
No, we only have one bottle of that.
We could taste that as well.
I don't think we've been able to open that. We only have one of the 2020 and the rest is 2023.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, all our wines are fermented in stainless steel, again, to keep the freshness. If you would add oak, the wine would get more white on the palate, and that's what we try to avoid. We really try to express that we are a cool climate. That's important for us. We try to express the straightforward style. And normally our wines lay on the yeast for at least 6 months. I try to extend the time a little, but sales are going too well, so we need the wines for the market. Again, it's just the wines more able to extract everything out of the yeast cells, and to get everything out of the wine which there is in. And once the wine are done, filtered, we bottle them. We add a little sulfur, as I said, just to stable the wines. Once the yeast is dead, there's a lot of other bacteria and microbiological organisms that want to somehow grade the wine, so we can limit that. And then once the wine is bottled, we store it for another 3 months before we put it on the market, so that the wine can ripe a bit on the bottle. That's just a short summary and about it. If you got any questions, feel free to ask them. And thanks again for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Great. Thank you, Julian.
Sure.
We,
Thank you.
we really appreciated you beaming in at, I know it's a later hour there, but I know that clocks just changed. So maybe slightly
Yeah, it's
later.
not too late.
Yeah, your dad
Yeah,
told me I didn't know about that change, or I would have given you a heads up. So I was being a bad dobler there, but I promise you I'll plan better next time. So does anybody have any
No,
questions?
I forgot myself, so you're all good.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that we all
We
forgot.
figured it out, so
Anybody have any
good for
questions?
us.
Okay, please go ahead.
So how is Julian related to the family?
Julian, they're asking how you're related to this group of people over here.
Yeah, you can answer better than I think.
Well, sort of, yeah. So Julian is the son of Rolf and Albrecht, who's also on the line, are the sons of Walter Dobler, who was the older gentleman who I met who was going to water his flowers, but he allowed us to come in and speak with him. And they are the descendants of George Dobler, Jörg Dobler, and he was the brother of Leonard Dobler, who was Melchior's father. And for anybody that's interested in all this, I can share that information with you. It makes a lot more sense on paper. Julian and Rolf and Albrecht are probably distant, like 8th or so cousins of ours, but I've never been able to run it to ground yet because I'm just not retired yet, and I don't have the time to figure it all out. But hopefully, before I leave the earth, we'll be able to figure it out down to the direct lineage, who's who. Is anybody else?
How many years have the Doblers been making wine?
Yeah, good question. How many years have Doblers been making wine, Julian, or anyone on the line? Can you give us a ballpark estimate?
Oh, that's hard to tell. As I said, nine generations. So if you say that every generation is about 20, 25 years, it's a lot of time. I can't tell exactly.
Yes, and as witnessed by your grandfather and grandmother, the Tablers can live a long time. So that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, just stay on the line here for a few minutes, Doblers. Let's give Julian and everybody a round of applause. So
Thank you.
I'm going to turn the camera back around. By the way, this is all being recorded, so you'll be available for you later, okay? So realize we weren't able to make the screen work properly, but you'll be able to see it a little bit later in the technical details. So we have two additional things before we sign off, and I wanted to keep the Germans on the line, so to speak, because I think you'll appreciate it. And so earlier today, we gave this 36-star flag to the Tabletown Church. This is when West Virginia broke away from Virginia during the Civil War. As I mentioned, our ancestor, John Alexander Tabler, fought for the North, but some of his brothers fought for the South. This flag is a Guidon flag. It means it flew in battle. That's why it has the tails on it. So if you see the film Lincoln, for example, which I really like, you'll notice when he goes down to Petersburg to talk with General Grant, you'll notice that this is the flag that's flying behind his cavalcade. And this was the flag that flew at the Battle of Gettysburg as well, because West Virginia had just broken away. And it was quite tumultuous time for Berkeley County, where we're from. So this is for the church. I know you don't normally give a battle flag to a church, but I think in this case we're going to make an exception. And this is to commemorate that while we always don't make great decisions, in the case of our family, I think we made the right decision in staying with the Union in the North. So the Union forever. So that's part one. But actually the one I like the best, and that's the reason why the Germans are on the line, I've been hiding this from David all day, but this is a map of Swabia, or what's called the Swabian Circle, that I purchased online.
Wow.
And this map is it says in Latin at the top, the Swabian Circle, as concerns the the Duke of Württemberg, and it talks about the different provinces. This map, which I hope the Germans can see, let me tip down the screen because it's prevalent, or it pertains to you. There you go. That's maybe a little better. I can put it up there closer. This map depicts politically what the area of the Holy Roman Empire looked like when our family left in 1732. This is from 1740, but this is in the aftermath of the 30 Years' War, when Protestants fought Catholics. They ethnically cleansed areas, some of the worst atrocities that the world had ever seen. It's very similar to those that have happened in the Syrian War and subsequently. And this map I purchased online, and this frame, though, is from Germany. It was restored by Victorian Art and Frame in Franklin, Pennsylvania, by Kyla Parkinson. And she and her team did a great job. As soon as I saw it and she told me about it, I said, can you jam this map into this frame? And she worked with it and did just a fantastic job. And this map is a gift of the George and Daisy Tabler family, our branch of the family, to the Tablertown People of Color Museum. As just a token of our appreciation for all that you shared with us, including this lovely day. Never forget where you came from. We're all part of the same family, even though we don't agree on everything. And David, I'm going to hand this over to you here. Hold on. We got the Germans on the line here, so they want to see too. There we go.
Hi, Julian.
Okay.
Very good indeed, yeah. Thanks.
All right, fantastic, everyone. Sorry to keep you all on the line. I know you're probably wanting to watch a soccer match or a football match or something like that, but very happy to be with you. Is there anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
Well,
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah. And Andrew, thanks for, also David, thanks for sharing really this day with us, so that you really made it make so that we could really participate here. So wish you all the best and have a good day, and hope this is really good way to really get some money for the museum, and I hope that David really can carry on with his museum work. So
Okay.
very good.
That's great. Thank you, Rolf. And, now that Hans Peter has passed away, we're going to rely on the Dobler family to continue the Kirsch schnapps making tradition. So we're looking for a few cherry trees on Albrecht's farm, or anybody that wants to volunteer. So put it in mind. But I'll see you.
We'll find some. We'll find some.
Okay. All right. All the best. Thanks for logging on.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
All right, David. I'm going to pass it back to David Butcher. Here you go.
Let's give Andrew a hand. That was amazing. I appreciate it. The last couple of years have been a whirlwind.
Talking to the mic.
The last couple of years have been a whirlwind with meeting him accidentally, him calling me, and then Philip going with us to Germany. And we don't realize how blessed we were to spend time with Hans Peter. He was just